The sound that tore through the silent night in the Lagos suburb of Ikeja was not human. It was a raw, guttural scream of terror, followed by the sickening crash of breaking pottery. Inside the small, neat living room of the Adeyemi family home, 22-year-old Amina stood frozen, her hands trembling violently over her mouth. Before her, the beautiful, ancient family vase, a priceless heirloom passed down from her great-grandmother in the village of Oyo, lay in 100 shattered pieces on the tile floor. The colorful patterns that once told stories of warriors and queens were now just fractured clay. But the vase was not what made Amina's blood run cold. It was what had been hidden inside it. Scattered among the shards were bundles of crisp, new naira notes, a dazzling gold necklace, and a single, folded piece of paper. Her brother, Kofi, 25, stared at the revealed treasure, his face a mask of utter betrayal and rising fury. He slowly lifted his eyes to meet Amina's. "You," he whispered, his voice dangerously quiet. "You are the thief." "Hello, welcome to the echoes from the baobab tree. Kindly support the channel by subscribing to the channel, like and share with your loved ones." Let's continue the story. 2 months earlier, on a bright Saturday morning in June, the Adeyemi compound was full of laughter. It was the weekend of the annual family reunion. Relatives from across Nigeria had traveled to the house in Ikeja. Uncle Tom from Port Harcourt was arguing politics with Auntie Busy from Enugu. The smell of jollof rice and spicy suya filled the air. Amina, home from university in Ibadan, was helping her mother in the kitchen, while Kofi was showing his younger cousins how to fix a bicycle tire. Their father, Mr. Adeyemi, a proud and kind-eyed man, called for everyone's attention. "My family," he boomed. "Today, we celebrate our blessings. And as is tradition, I have added to our family treasure." He held up the magnificent vase. "This year's contribution is for Kofi's new engineering business. The money is sealed inside for safekeeping until he is ready." He placed the vase with great care on the high shelf in the living room, where it gleamed under the light. Everyone clapped. Amina smiled at her brother, her heart swelling with pride for him. Little did she know, that vase would soon become the center of a terrible storm. A week later, the happy atmosphere had begun to sour. It started with small things. Mr. Adeyemi's favorite silver cufflinks went missing. Then, Auntie Busy complained that some money had been taken from her handbag. The family began to whisper. Who could it be? The house was always full of people. Suspicion floated in the air like a bad smell. Kofi, who was working hard to get his business contract signed, grew irritable. "Someone in this house is a snake," he muttered to Amina one evening as they washed plates. "They are stealing from their own blood." Amina nodded, feeling a knot of worry in her stomach. She hated the tension. The warm, trusting family feeling was disappearing. By the end of July, the thefts had grown bolder. A large amount of money was taken from Uncle Tom's locked suitcase. The family was now in an uproar. Mr. Adeyemi called a serious meeting. "This ends now," he said, his voice trembling with anger and hurt. "The thief is among us. Until the culprit confesses, no one leaves this house, and no one receives any more family support." The room was silent. Amina saw the looks passing between her relatives, suspicious, angry glances. Her best friend and cousin, Chidi, gave her a sympathetic smile, but others were not so kind. That night, Amina lay in her bed, listening to the uneasy silence of the house. She felt a deep sadness. Her family was breaking apart. August brought a new problem. Kofi's big business deal was falling apart because he needed the startup money from the vase to pay a deposit. He begged his father to open the vase early. "Just this once, Baba. My whole future depends on this." But Mr. Adeyemi was firm. "The tradition is clear. The vase is open only at the next reunion, or in case of a true emergency. A business deal is not an emergency. Be patient, my son." Kofi was furious. He slammed doors and spent less time at home. Amina tried to talk to him, to calm him down, but he would just snap, "What do you know? You're still a child." Her heart ached for her brother, but she also felt a strange fear she couldn't explain. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Amina was searching for a book in the living room when she saw something that made her stop. The family vase, it looked different. She walked closer, her heart beating faster. The seal around the lid, a special wax pressed with the family symbol, was cracked. Not broken, but with a tiny, almost invisible hairline fracture. Had it always been like that? She wasn't sure. A cold trickle of fear ran down her spine. She decided not to tell anyone. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe the heat had cracked the wax. She tried to push the thought from her mind, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The theft suddenly stopped. For 2 whole weeks, nothing went missing. The family began to relax, thinking the thief had been scared off by Mr. Adeyemi's warning. But the peace was false. One evening, Kofi came home looking devastated. "The deal is off," he said, his voice hollow. "They gave the contract to someone else. I needed that money, and now it's gone." He glared at the vase on the shelf as if it were his enemy. Later, Amina overheard her uncle Ton whispering to her father, "Perhaps the thief has taken what they really wanted all along. Perhaps the target was never our small things, but the treasure in the vase." Mr. Adeyemi sighed a deep, weary sigh. "We will see. The reunion is next month. We will open it then, and all will be revealed." Amina's worry grew into a tight ball of anxiety. She started having bad dreams about the vase. In her dreams, it would fall and shatter, and everyone would point at her, calling her the thief. She became quiet and withdrawn. Her cousin Chidi noticed. "Amina, what is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost," Chidi asked as they peeled plantains together. Amina wanted to tell her about the cracked seal, but the words stuck in her throat. What if she was wrong? What if she was accusing someone without proof? She just shook her head and forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired from schoolwork." But she wasn't fine. She was terrified of what was coming. The night before the fateful day, the atmosphere in the house was electric with tension. The September reunion was not a happy one. Relatives sat in small groups, not talking to each other. The joy was gone. Mr. Adeyemi stood up after dinner, his face grave. "Tomorrow," he announced, "we will open the vase. We will see if the family treasure is safe. And then, we will know the truth." His eyes scanned the room, and for a moment, they seemed to rest on Amina. She felt a jolt of panic. Did he suspect her? That night, she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, listening to the old house creak. She had a horrible feeling that something awful was about to happen. The next evening, the entire family gathered in the living room. The vase sat on the center table. Mr. Adeyemi, looking older than his years, reached for it. But Kofi stepped forward, his patience gone. "Let me do it, father," he said, his voice tight. He took the vase, and as he did, his hand, clumsy with anger, slipped. The world seemed to move in slow motion. The beautiful, ancient vase soared through the air, tumbling end over end. Amina's scream tore from her lungs as she lunged forward, too late. It hit the hard floor with a sound that echoed like a gunshot. And there, amid the terrible destruction, was the proof. The money. The gold. And that single, folded paper. Kofi, his face pale with shock, picked up the note and unfolded it. He read it, and his head snapped up, his eyes blazing with a fire of hurt and rage directed straight at his sister. "It's a receipt," he snarled, holding it up for all to see. "For a plane ticket to London. In your name, Amina. You are going to steal our family's future and run away." The entire room erupted. Voices shouted, accusations flew. But Amina heard none of it. She was staring at the note in her brother's hand, a note she had never written, for a trip she had never planned. Someone had set her up. And as she looked into the furious eyes of her family, she realized with a sinking heart that the real thief was still in the room, watching their plan succeed. But who? And how could she ever prove her innocence? The room was a cage of noise and pointing fingers. Amina! How could you? Her mother cried, her voice breaking. Uncle Tom's face was dark with disgust. I always said she was too quiet. Quiet people have dangerous secrets. Amina stood in the center of the storm, shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Someone put that there, she screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the family's outrage. Kofi took a menacing step toward her, the receipt crumpled in his fist. You were my sister. I trusted you. And you were planning to run away with our future. In that moment, Amina saw not just anger in his eyes, but a deep, painful hurt. She knew words were useless. The evidence was too perfect. With a final, desperate look at her father, who simply turned his face away in shame, she did the only thing she could think of. She turned and ran. She pushed past her aunties, flew out the front door, and disappeared into the dark Lagos night, the sounds of her family's betrayal chasing her into the shadows. Amina ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave way. She found herself hiding in the small, abandoned prayer shed at the end of their street. Curled up on the dusty floor, she finally let the sobs shake her body. How had this happened? Who would do this to her? Her mind raced. The cracked seal on the vase, the thefts that stopped, the receipt with her name. It was a plan. A clever, cruel plan to make her look guilty. But why? Who in her family hated her so much? She thought of every face in that room. Her kind mother, her proud father, her ambitious brother, her funny uncle, her gossiping auntie, her friendly cousin Chidi. None of them seemed capable of such evil. But one of them was. And that person was now watching their plan work perfectly. The next morning, the Adeyemi house was a tomb of silence and shame. Mr. Adeyemi sat in his armchair, staring at the broken pieces of the vase still on the floor. He had not moved them. His wife wept quietly in the kitchen. Kofi was locked in his room, his dream of a business shattered alongside the family trust. The other relatives had left quickly, carrying the scandal back to their own cities. The family was broken. In the quiet, Mr. Adeyemi's mind began to walk. Something about the scene did not sit right with him. Amina's face, it hadn't been the face of a guilty thief caught in the act. It had been the face of someone utterly shocked, terrified, and confused. He remembered her as a little girl, always returning a lost coin, always honest to a fault. A tiny seed of doubt began to grow in his heart. Amina knew she could not stay in the shed forever. She was hungry, thirsty, and scared. But she could not go home. She thought of her best friend, Chioma, who lived in the Sorale area. It was a long walk, but she had no choice. Using back alleys and side streets, her head covered with her scarf, she made the journey. When Chioma opened her door, her eyes went wide. Amina. What happened? Your family is looking everywhere for you. They said you stole. Amina fell into her friend's arms, crying again. I didn't, Chioma, I swear on my life. Someone is framing me. Chioma, who had known Amina since primary school, believed her instantly. Come in, come in. You are safe here. For the first time in hours, Amina felt a flicker of hope. Back in Ikeja, Kofi's anger was cooling into a hard, cold lump of sadness. He replayed the scene over and over. Amina's scream as the vase fell, it wasn't the scream of someone afraid of being caught. It was the scream of someone trying to prevent a disaster. He looked at the receipt in his hand. A one-way ticket to London, booked 2 weeks ago. Why would Amina book a ticket so far in advance if she was only going to steal the money yesterday? And why leave a receipt inside the very vase she stole from? It was like a thief leaving their address at the scene of the crime. It was too stupid. And Amina was not stupid. A heavy feeling settled in his stomach. What if they had made a terrible mistake? With Chioma's help, Amina started to think like a detective. The thief needed 2 things, Chioma said, spreading out a notepad. 1. They needed to steal the money from the vase without anyone knowing. 2. They needed to blame you. Amina nodded, her mind clearing. The wax seal was only cracked a little. That means someone opened it carefully and tried to reseal it. So they had access to the wax and the family symbol stamp, Chioma deduced. Who in your house would have that? Amina's blood ran cold. The stamp was kept in her father's study. Many people had access, but only one person was expert at crafts and sealing things, her cousin Chidi, who was studying fine arts. Chidi, who had been so sympathetic to her. Little did Amina know, she was getting dangerously close to the truth. Mr. Adeyemi could not sleep. He went to his study and took out the family stamp. He looked at it under a bright light. Then, he had an idea. He gathered the broken pieces of the vase with the wax seal. Using a magnifying glass, he examined the crack. On the edges of the broken wax, he saw something very, very faint, a tiny smudge of a color that was not in their family wax. It was a speck of bright blue. Their wax was deep red. His heart began to pound. Someone had used a different wax to reseal the vase, and it had not blended perfectly. They had made a mistake. Amina, feeling braver, decided she needed to look at the evidence herself. She waited until deep night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds. With Chioma as a lookout, she crept back to her own house. It was dark and quiet. Using her spare key, she slipped inside, her heart hammering against her ribs. The broken vase pieces were still there. She knelt, using her phone's flashlight. She saw the money bundles, the necklace, and then, she saw it. Under one piece of clay, hidden from immediate view, was a small, cheap, bright blue bead. The kind used in local craft markets. The kind her cousin Chidi loved to use in her jewelry making. Amina's breath caught in her throat. Chidi. Just as Amina picked up the blue bead, the living room light snapped on. She froze, terrified. It was Kofi. He stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. I found something, Kofi, Amina whispered, holding up the bead. I think it was Chidi. Instead of shouting, Kofi walked slowly into the room. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked exhausted and sad. Father found blue wax on the seal, he said quietly. He is on his way to Chidi's apartment right now. The realization that her brother now believed her washed over Amina like a warm wave. But it was followed by a new fear. If Chidi knows she's caught, she might run. Mr. Adeyemi, with a determined and heavy heart, arrived at Chidi's small apartment in Yoba. He did not knock. He used his key, given to him for emergencies. The living room was in chaos, with suitcases open. Chidi was frantically throwing clothes into a bag. She spun around, her face white with shock. Uncle. What are you? It is over, Chidi, Mr. Adeyemi said, his voice like stone. He held up a small plastic bag with the blue wax evidence. Why? Chidi's shoulders slumped. All the fight left her. It wasn't about hate for Amina, she confessed in a rush of tears. It was about envy. Envy that Kofi was getting the family money for a business when her own art school fees were unpaid. Envy that Amina was loved and trusted. She had taken the money slowly, from everyone, to pay her fees. She planted the receipt to cover her tracks and frame Amina, the good, quiet cousin no one would suspect of fighting back. She never meant for the vase to break. It was a terrible accident. As she confessed, Mr. Adeyemi's phone rang. It was Kofi. Baba, Amina is with me. She is innocent. Back at the house, Amina heard her father's voice, thick with emotion, through the phone. Come home, my daughter. We have found the real thief. But just as a wave of relief began to rise, a loud bang echoed from the hallway upstairs, followed by a choked cry. Mr. Adeyemi, still on the phone, gasped. Chidi. What have you done? The line went dead. Kofi and Amina looked at each other, their relief shattered. A new, terrifying extreme event had just begun. What had Chidi done? Thank you for watching. Kindly give us a like and subscribe to the channel.